Well, I'll see what my next guest makes of that. Tom Peck, who's the parliamentary sketch writer with The Independent. Very good to talk to you. Now, I know it's your job to write humorously about politics, but is this assault on Nigel Farage? Is that a potential source of mirth?
Well, you've used the word assault, and you're not the first person to, and everybody's been calling it that. The guy has been arrested on common assault. It's, of course, not an assault until a criminal conviction happens. I don't think that will happen. Of course, your report quite rightly has used this as a way to talk about what happened to Joe Cox and the fact that we all hate each other now. But we don't all have to necessarily go to sort of be dragged into that world. I mean, Brexit has made the UK a pretty miserable place. But I still would like to hold on to the vague possibility that once every few years, a politician can be egged or can have a milkshake thrown at them, and it's okay, just laugh about it.
Yeah, but the problem is, as you touched on there, and as many people have been observing, OK, it may be an egg or a milkshake, but it could have been something worse and more damaging.
Yeah, but it wasn't, was it? And I reject all these attempts to sort of draw a line or draw some sort of sliding scale between a guy walking through Newcastle town centre and throwing his Five Guys milkshake over Nigel Farage and a sort of a pre-planned, premeditated shooting and stabbing of and murder of an MP. I don't like this whole debate all day that one is somehow even on the same scale as the other or that they're even related. I just reject it. It was a prank. I don't condone it. You know, I wouldn't like it to happen every single day. It's obviously not the right way to behave, but it isn't that serious and it doesn't really matter.
OK, and so have you written it up and what have you said?
I have. I've been through all of the different flavours of milkshake to ascertain which would be the most amusing to throw at Nigel Farage. But unfortunately, I couldn't do any better than a £5.25 banana and salted caramel milkshake. I mean, the thing about this really is that everyone has been saying that you have to engage with the arguments. You can't just defeat people by throwing milkshake at them or by shutting them down and so on and so forth. But Nigel Farage has been going around the country telling lies for a month now, and Andrew Marr tried to bring him down the weekend before last, and all he's done in response was declare the BBC the enemy. Channel 4 investigated his finances, and they've now just been banned from all his campaign events. The rules of engagement, some of the liberal democratic rules of engagement, are already being broken, and they're being broken by people like Nigel Farage. So it's a pretty difficult world in which we now operate.
Well, that's your view, but let me put this to you then. Would you have written in a similar vein if the attack had been on presumably a position you support coming from Change UK or the Liberal Democrats, if it had been an attack on Heidi Allen or Vince Cable or something like that?
I can say without any shadow of a doubt, with absolute certainty, that any politician of any stripe, under any circumstance, at a campaign event, having a prankster throw some milkshake at them would have attracted the same amount of mirth from me, absolutely regardless. I don't think it's comparable to these horrible videos where Anna Soubry last year being relentlessly hounded by people with camera phones and shouting at her for being a traitor and intimidating. This is a lone airball milkshake. It's not great, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, but I think, you touched on it. We've all been talking about it, hasn't it? It's the general coarsening of the debate, yes, over Brexit, but also it's been enabled, hasn't it, by social media?
Yeah, and it's bad news, but I don't have a magic bullet, unfortunate term, but I don't have a solution to all of that. And if you talk about the coarsening of debate, in your report you mentioned Carl Benjamin of UKIP, who had a milkshake thrown at him at the weekend. Now, as you know, he has made repeated jokes about raping the Labour MP Jess Phillips. But he's had milkshake thrown at him at the weekend because he is campaigning at the weekend. And he's campaigning at the weekend because he's still a candidate. His party won't disown him. His party won't condemn what he said. He's still standing. That is not normal. That's not how these things are meant to work. So, yes, there is a coarsening debate. And, yes, the public are angry and everyone's shouting at each other over social media. But also the politicians are, in a big way, culpable for this too. Some of the people who've been, you talked about Tommy Robinson, these are people who should not be anywhere near the public realm, if you like. They shouldn't be running for election. They shouldn't be candidates in popular parties. They should be called out.
Come on, Tom. But just a moment, Tom. I mean, Nigel Farage, not in this country, but he was in this country, but he sits in another country. Nigel Farage is an elected politician.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about the other people. Yes, he certainly is. But as I think we sort of already talked about, there are attempts to engage Nigel Farage in what I would consider to be the normal rules of liberal democracy. I.e., you challenge him on his arguments, you take on his cause. But attempts to do that by journalists in the past few weeks have ended with them being sort of banned or struck off from his events. And then, of course, politicians should be taking him on too. And what do we have? We have the Labour Party, who is just, they don't care what he says or what he does as long as none of it sort of lands on them. And then you have the Conservative Party, who talk about making some sort of electoral pact with him to save their own skin. So this guy in Newcastle who throws a milkshake at Nigel Farage, that is pretty much the only resistance he has faced in a month of going around the country making this, I've been to it several times, this outrageous stump speech where he talks about the MPs betraying democracy and killing off Brexit, when it's Bill Cash, Bernard Jenkins, Steve Baker, all these hardcore Brexiteers that won't sign the deal. We'd been out of the EU a month ago if it wasn't for Brexiteers. And Nigel Farage uses that as a pretext to scream betrayal.
OK.
And nobody seems to be landing a blow on him for any of this stuff at all.
OK. Tom Peck, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your views. Tom Peck there, a parliamentary sketch writer with The Independent.